That's the first screen. My name is Drew Gholson. Glad to be here. Like Steve said, that we did this presentation February or March, and so a lot of you may have already heard this. It does say Texas A&M AgriLife Extension on the the title. I have recently I'm over at Mississippi State now, so I will use this time to introduce Joel Pigg in the back. So the next hurricane that anybody wants to call and collaborate on in Texas, don't call me, call Joel in the back.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw him under the bus. I'm excited to be here. Today is my 10th anniversary with my wife, and so if we could, yeah, she's not happy about it. She's not clapping.
She's not happy that he's here.
Yeah, not the anniversary. But if we could, in 2 years, the west of Mississippi, maybe in Hawaii, then we can call it even on that. So what happened, and kind of going through the story, I'm going to talk about the capacity to support private well owners during and after a natural disaster, and what, from our perspective in Texas, what we went through, the issues we went through and saw, and how we tried to meet those needs that we saw with the well owners. Excuse me. Just a quick background with the Texas Well Owner Network, what was existing prior to the natural disaster. We have a program, Education Well Owner Program for private wells, for private well owners, called the Texas Well Owner Network. And we established in 2011. And during that time, we didn't have something like this to where we could get together. I called Aaron Ling for Virginia Tech right after I got hired. Penn State helped out with a lot of this. So things like this where we're all able to get together and collaborate and have that partnership, is what Steve was saying, is very, very valuable and helpful to get things, programs, and started. So we started in 2011. And since then, we've had over 8,000 participants in workshops, and we have a couple of different types of workshops that we conduct, and I'll go into that in just a little bit. We've had over 200 events, and so those events would be those workshops. We have several hours that 2 different 1 hour and a 4 to 6 hour program, and we've covered 166 counties in Texas, and we also have 2,000 newsletter subscribers. And so with that, that's the established program that we had. And kind of laying the foundation of what we had prior to the Hurricane Harvey event that I'll talk about in just a little bit. And those 2 types of programs that we have are the Well Educated. It's a 4-hour to 6-hour real in-depth education program where we go over groundwater hydrology, water well basics. We go into septic system maintenance, water quality, water treatment, abandoned water wells, plugging abandoned water wells. It's real in depth, and they can bring water samples to this program, and then we after they leave, a few days later, we give those results back to them. We have another type of program called the Well Informed. It's a 1-hour education program, and with that one, it's more of a campaign. We advertise it, they pick up sample kits, and they drop it off and they leave. And then they come back and get the results on a time that we have specified within those instructions. And then they get the results and they sit down, we go through those and interpret those results for them and do some wellhead protection talk. So with that, the foundation, that's what we had established as we were going forward since 2011. And then on August 25th, Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, and the way it hit, South Texas, and then went up the coast, and then went back out, and then came back in, and just sat on top of the coast and dumped a year's worth of rainfall in just a week. And so we had extensive flooding, and it covered a large span area within Texas. So we had 27 trillion gallons dumped on Texas during that time, and then $125 billion in damage. If you see that picture on the right, we would drive through these subdivisions in these household areas, and you could barely see the house because all their stuff, just after the water receded, they just gutted everything. It was just lines of streets of all these debris stacked up within that. And you've seen this with Kelsey's presentation. I'm going to go through it just real quick again. But what happens to private water wells during a flood is you have your wellhead, you have your flood waters coming over the top of your cap. And if it's not sealed completely, you're going to have water Go down into your water well. If it's not completed correctly, the foundation, the grouting, it's going to come down the side. And if you have a karst aquifer, it can work its way down that way. And just like she said, if you have a perfect water well and your neighbors are contributing to that, there's a lot of issues when we have flooded water wells. And we want to make sure that the well owners are aware of this during that time. And so when Hurricane Harvey hit, we were the Texas Well Owner Network, and there's two of us that's part of this program, and we felt overwhelmed of how we could reach out and figure out to reach out to these well owners and what we needed to do. So first thing that we looked at was, let's just let them know they need to test their well. Probably not safe to drink, the dangers of flooded wells if your well's been flooded. And so we worked with our communications. We created a press release, and a lot of Houston Chronicle and a lot of publications and newspapers picked it up and spread it out really well for us. But basically what we're just saying is you need to test, don't drink it, and test it. But there's a lot of questions that come along with that of where do I test and how do I test and what does it mean when I test. And we knew that that's the way we needed to go, but we didn't know how to attack that. And so this is a list of how we felt we needed to respond. Then we need to buy testing kits. We need to prepare testing kits. We need to coordinate the free testing events, so get the logistics set up. Where are we going to have them? I mean, it covered a large span of the state on the coast, and so how do we work with each one? How do we have the logistics? How do we get the room, the capacity to test those wells? And then getting those results out to them, tell them what they mean, and then how to remediate those issues with it. That's what we're looking at. And the two that are highlighted in yellow was where we felt like I couldn't immediately respond because of those two things. I didn't have any money to buy the number of test kits, and then also really just preparing the test kits. We're used to every month having a workshop or every other month and slowly packing these and setting these up. But the amount of investment that we needed to buy these and then get them packed quickly, and then testing. We had a small incubator that we could handle a one event at a time, but when we're talking about events with large numbers and then overlapping, I felt that those were the two areas where I didn't know what to do and how to handle that. And I could coordinate within extension offices, and I could disseminate the information. Excuse me. One of the benefits from the conference 2 years ago was meeting several folks that are in the same industry, working with private water wells. And so I got a phone call from Kelsey Piper, Dr. Piper with Virginia Tech, and she called and said, "Do you need any help?" And so that was a phone call that started down a long and crazy world after that, but it was a good thing because what she could provide were those two things that I needed help with. And so she had an Nsf grant that helped us for a rapid response. And so she had the money and she had the testing capabilities. So these are the questions that we heard talking to well owners, the issues that we felt. Drinking water, I showed you that debris stacked up. They had their house completely flooded, ripping out everything. They had hundreds of things that they had to worry about. And if they did know that they had to worry about their drinking water as well, then it was maybe even down that list or one of many things. And so trying to elevate and bring that to light, that this is an issue with their drinking water, it could be an issue with their drinking water. So there's the questions. Well, is it safe? Well, the answer is you need to test it. Well, where do I take it? And a lot of these areas, far east Texas, even down in the south, I mean, it's 2 hours to the closest lab that's going to. So, and again, they're dealing with tons of different issues that they're having to worry. Their life just got flipped upside down. And so, where do I take it? And I don't have the time. Roads are closed. Okay, I take it. I got the results. Well, what do the results mean? Okay, this is what the results mean. Well, how do I fix it? And so these are all the questions that we felt we needed to answer and make it as easy as possible for the well owner during this time. So like I mentioned with Kelsey, with Dr. Piper, with Virginia Tech, with NSF, had an Nsf Rapid Grant that was already in place for for responding to well owners during a flood event. And so that enabled us to answer those two highlighted questions that I felt like we couldn't do. So they jumped in and bought the testing equipment. They packed it and prepared it at Virginia Tech, shipped it to us, and then I coordinated with the county extension offices. And so we shipped them out, worked with the timing, so we had some overlapping, and we had personnel at each place. It was a logistic. I mean, we had a spreadsheet of who was going where and how it was happening. So we could work with that. We had county extension offices in each county. We had persons that through our established program with Texas Well Owner Network that has worked with us before. They knew how to take in, receive it, make sure the well owner followed the instruction properly. They worked with us, and then advertising. I mean, this is a quick turnaround. We're used to making sure people know about this as for a normal event, but when a response, we had to make sure this advertisement was out quickly and hit as many people as we could. And then the holding time, we had to get these on the incubator in the short amount of time to make sure that holding time held up. And so a lot of these testing were at the beginning was done in Virginia Tech. So we would overnight those, and so they would test and then we worked on the dissemination, the results, and the fact sheets. And when I say fact sheets, explaining what to do now. How do we fix these problems? So here's some pictures that as we set up a tent, and within these neighborhoods, right across the street from that tent is where the debris stack was in the neighborhood. We had the county extension offices set up clinics where we started receiving it. Here's our samples, and then the bottom right there is where we're overnighting those coolers packed with ice to Virginia Tech. And that's how we started out. And then once we got our feet settled down, and then we started taking over some samples, collecting up some incubators for ourselves to be able to do that ourselves. And so what I felt was enabled us to respond in the best way that we could was we had an established private well owner education program, the Texas Well Owner Network. We had the extension network with AgriLife Extension. We had county offices in each county. We had folks there that really just changed their complete focus to hurricane recovery during that time. And so I was able to send out emails to them, questionnaires. What's your issue with private water wells? Are they flooded? How many samples do you think you can need? What time and date? Help spread the word out. And then that research component, which is what we were missing on being able to go forward with this. And so not only filling those needs from my extension perspective, which would be we need to test, we need to get the word out, educate them, test, and then get the results back to them. But also, they brought in the research component being that questionnaires. And so we'll go into some of those, having that idea to put in some questionnaires with this so that the next time we have an event, we can be better prepared to help meet those needs, kind of understand what's going on a little bit closer with these well owners. And so with those combination, I felt like that's what made it all come together. We had 61 water testing events immediately after Hurricane Harvey, and we had 1,502 well owners that participated in this workshop. And it was fast and furious, and it was a lot different than our normal types of programs, but we're trying to do it as quickly as possible. But making sure everyone got the information that they needed in a timely manner. And when you're sitting out results after results and making sure that they knew what to do, because when they got a result saying they had E. coli in their water well, to them, that one sample of 1,500 was their drinking water. And so prioritizing each person as best that we could was the goal and the struggle as well as we were going through this. So just a quick summary of what happened during that time. I mentioned we had provided free well testing for more than 1,500 well owners. We delivered 61 well testing events that covered 29 different hurricane-impacted counties. And the part that was extremely important for us and the hardest part was communicating private well best management practices, the information. So this is your results, and then now what do you do? And trying to walk through them as best that we could, even though there were a lot of folks that we had to deal with during this time. So how we set that up is we had contact information. Most had email that we could use. Of course, there's a lot of folks that they're not going to use email, and so we had phone calls. We had lots of phone calls. I still get phone calls, just random people calling me about their results, and we're a year and a half or so past that, and so we're trying to go through you might just want to go ahead and test again and not worry about what your results were. It's a good education to the annual testing. But what we developed during this was a comprehensive email with the results that we felt we needed to put as much information on it, but be concise as possible. So having those links, those well disinfection videos, what the results mean, and then our contact information at the bottom. So we send a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls. We mailed some. They wanted their letters in and sent in the mail, and phone calls, and again, more phone calls. So we had developed some of these materials, the response, the emails that we need to send out to them. And we also, you saw this picture with Dr. Piper's presentation as well, is during that fast and furious time, we needed some type of consistent message on well disinfection. I think she talked about all the different types of well disinfection protocols. Within the state of Texas, I think we had 3 different ones that state agencies, A&M, Extension, and a health department, they were all different. And so we tried to come together. We real quickly looked across the nation what we had and through, so we could have a consistent message with this program that we could tell people and help people get through that. And the well disinfection with private well owners is a whole other topic, and Kelsey was jumping into that, and coming from this is going to be a topic of how to best help them walk through that, and that's a difficult subject with that. And I'll touch on that just a little bit later. So our results, as we went through this, you can see just immediately after, I think we had, I can't read those numbers, but I think it's like 40, and so this is around what we considered round 1, like right after Hurricane Harvey, and you can see the E. coli, I think it's around 14% or so as it went up. And then you saw as it went through round 1, we saw that gradually go down and really get down in the middle to 0, almost E. coli, and then it bumped up what it would as our norm when we see with no flood impaction is impacted is about 3 to 5% E. coli and around 35% or so total coliform, and so it kind of bounced back to what we would consider a normal response. This is one county specifically that we did almost a weekly. They had a really widespread and intense flooding in this county. We had some other financial support that focused on this, so we're almost to do this on a weekly basis as we went back and continued to do a weekly response, and a lot of one-on-one consultation on how to remediate this. As you could see, the total coliform and E. coli rates spike pretty high right after the hurricane and the floods, and then at work it's all the way down to and then the far end there where we had back-to-back 0 E. colis and really low total coliform. And it's probably actually come back up from that after that. But and a lot of those were repeats, a lot of them. If they came back with a positive, then we gave them instructions, they would come back. And so with this, this county was, a couple hours from College Station. And so working with this on a weekly basis as we were doing 15 other counties at the same time but it was the local county agents working through them, educating them on how to help them. A lot of phone calls, working through and kind of walking alongside these well owners as we're going through it. Here's a map of the extent, the different counties that we were in, coming down where it made landfall at San Patricio, and then all the way up to East Texas where it's it stalled out around Harris or Houston, the city of Houston for a long time. And you see that white gap right there in the middle. And that's because that's where we didn't do any testing in that. And we didn't have a long conversation with these labs. But that City of Houston lab on top, the top county, and the bottom is Brazoria County. And they have a health department in Brazoria County that was doing tons of free testing, and they had it pretty well covered. And they, in the city of Houston as well, they created for all Harris County folks to be able to have free testing. And so I made a phone call, do you need any help? Is there any needs? They said, no, we got it. And so we focused on areas on the outside skirts of that. And so we didn't do any testing in that. If you go in East Texas, further east of Houston, then they're looking at 2 to 3 hours from a possible lab. And so what we tried to do is reach out to the well owner who, if they knew that they needed a test and they knew where to go, which is all very not common with being able to do that, we wanted to make it as easy as possible. We wanted to set up in their backyard and set it up to where that they could easily walk it, drive it down the road and to set up to one of our clinics and handle all the logistics for them. And so we stayed out of that area. And I mentioned the research component. Here's an example of the questionnaire. So we wanted to make sure, and this is one of the most important things that we did, besides testing and getting those results back to them, but being able to capture some of that information. Did you drink your well? How long after after your flood did you drink it? Did you disinfect it? What's your well type? How old's your well? Did you disinfect it? Did a well driller disinfect it? Trying to capture all that information so that we can be better equipped for the next round. So just this slide as well, I think was from Kelsey, but this is overall. So we had free testing in several counties, and so whether they are flooded or not, you see a free testing, a lot of folks came out, whether they were directly impacted from Hurricane Harvey or not. We had 47% total coliform and 12% E. coli. That's, again, overall. But we're able to ask the question, was your well submerged? And so out of those residents that reported that their wells were submerged, you saw the difference versus not submerged and submerged. And so it went up 8 times or so from E. coli from 3% to 23%. And so you saw the effects of flooding pretty quickly that, yes, there is an issue for those that are submerged. And a lot of them, but they just don't know. They evacuated their home, and timing was a huge issue with this. And that's why we had so many multiple testing events, because when's the right time to offer up a clinic whenever you needed to go and you had to take those sample back to your lab within 24 hours. But they're staggering back into their home at different times. And again, 100 different things that they're having to deal with. So we try to offer as many repetitive programs as possible. We also asked a question about their drinking. Are you drinking the water source immediately after the flood? Are you drinking it? And so 44% of them are drinking it without any treatment. 30% are not drinking it, and then 26% are drinking it but with treatment. So out of that 44% that said that they're drinking it with no treatment after a flood, this is their specific results. And so out of that 44%, 48% of them had total coliform, and 13 had E. coli. We also asked the question, how do you feel? So how do you feel how safe your water is to drink? And so of that 44% that are drinking their water right after a flood, this is their response. And I see several issues, obviously, with this. But so we have 42% of them that think it's safe to drink. Right after a flood, and they're drinking it. So you hope that, they think it's safe, so they're drinking it. That's a concern. That's why we have the publications or the press releases sent out, hey, it's not safe to drink, you need to test it. But on the other side of that, we had 35% of them think it's not safe on the far end of the scale, that it's completely not safe to drink, but they're the ones drinking it. And so what are those issues with that, of why are they not treating it, or why are they not testing it, or why are they not getting other sources? And so trying to fill those needs on both ends of that, of letting them, the education of letting them know it's not safe and you need to test, and then the ones that think it's not safe, helping them walk through that process of making sure it is safe to drink. And that's where the role we tried to fit in with that. And this is very similar to Andrea's with Florida. With their responses, the same question was asked for our folks. And so the best ways to provide information immediately after a natural disaster, and again, it's that personal response, the personal back and forth. So phone calls, emails, that's how they want to be go through this process and get this information to them, which is hard. But that's how it's good information to know how to they want to be reached and the best way to reach them. And a few other questions. This is about, was your well submerged or not, total, overall. You can see a lot of people don't know, but a lot of them is that they weren't submerged, that were participating within the program with the free testing clinics. And this is, was your well shock chlorinated? Most did not shock chlorinate, and if they did it themselves. And I had a well driller come along with us that was able to do some shock chlorination clinics. So we would go throughout these areas because the well drillers were just inundated, completely covered up, and running around as crazy as they could. And so folks couldn't wait that long to get shock chlorinated. So ones that felt like they needed to do it, they were doing it themselves. And so that's looking forward and getting ready for the next one again. Is getting that laid out. Those materials are a big thing, and so we've created those materials, the email responses, the press releases, the questionnaires, all that's ready. All that was created immediately after. I mean, so right before we sent it out, we were creating these as quickly as we could, and so that was one of the issues. So those are created. Hopefully, hopefully no one needs those, but if you do, reach out because these materials are there and you can tweak them how it best fits your area. Local labs, we talked to the gap there that we skipped over and didn't focus our efforts on. One next step for that is what they're interested in is they had the capacity for testing a lot of samples, but they don't have the outreach. They just rely on well owners bringing it to them. So one thing we're working towards is the next need once this happens again for the next need is to set up where extension is more of a logistic standpoint of setting up these campaigns and then funneling them to these labs that are capable of doing that and working through that way. And then funding is obviously the issue, an issue that we had a roadblock that was answered through several research grants, and then emergency list, contact list. And then I mentioned that mentor group, but just have a group where you have the materials that can supply those and kind of go through that process so that someone who's been through this can work and walk through that. And I think well disinfection is an area that needs some focus on. How do they're going to do it themselves in some cases, so how can you best equip them to make sure it's done and done safely and correctly? We're working on some workshops. We did one-on-one workshops, videos, so that we can send those out real quickly, working with well drillers to get those done because there's a need, and it's a fast need, and there's a response that we're able to try to meet, even though through our normal program we're not suggesting private well owners to do their own disinfection, but during these times, how do we balance that? And with that, that's it. And those are all the sponsors that cooperated with us through this project, and that's what it took, was the partnership and the collaboration. And if there's any time, I'll take some questions.
There is, and there are. Your sponsor slide might have answered this question, but it says you didn't mention involvement with the federal government during the response. Was the state or federal government, FEMA, not interested in asking or providing assistance?
Okay. They were interested. It was a hard. We had lots of meetings with FEMA. I mean, there's one time I looked around. We were in a room, and there was like 35 different agencies, federal and state, all together. And the big question was, there's private wells. Who's going to do it? Because no one wanted to touch private wells. No one wanted to work with them. The state agencies said, and I say that negatively, like they didn't want to. They felt that they couldn't. And so the state agencies, we can't. Federal says he can't. And so finally, about halfway through this program, they pulled in extension with that, and that's where we got plugged in. And so they did help us and work through us with that, and helped financially to provide those free testings. And so it was a process that's still going on, but they did help, and they were involved.
Okay, these keep changing. How often were those classes held? Is the sampling free?
The sampling was free, and the classes were held depending on what, we were back and forth with our agents, the county that were there in the county. And so some counties we did weekly, twice a week. Some we did 3 times total throughout those 3 months or however it spanned. It just depended. If there was an area that had widespread flooding, results were coming in bad, we tried to frequent those. It was just really based on need, and so the communication with the extension office was the driver on that.
Okay. Did you offer follow-up testing for people after they had a chance to take action?
Yes, so many of those were, and that data that we have is just huge as we're trying to figure out and go through that. But trying to see there was many duplicate samples going through, and that example of Wharton County, we did every week for like 5 weeks or so, and so there was a lot of duplicate samples.
Okay. Did you recommend pumping out contaminated homeowner wells before chlorinating? Did homeowners mostly disinfect their wells themselves? Sounds like they did.
Yeah, mostly they did, and one thing that I am interested in looking at, just preliminary data as we went through this, is how much time played a factor in that. As we see how many people disinfected their well, if we can kind of map out what the results looked like, could there be a recommendation to purge their well, take time? I have nothing based off this yet, but could we recommend? It'd be wonderful to be able to recommend just purge your well, pump all the flooded water out, and then wait 3 weeks, I'm making that up. And then
Sure.
Is that just as effective as a well owner shock chlorinated it themselves? And that's a lot easier recommendation than what we had to deal with shock chlorination.
Okay, so how many people plan to check out at the break? Okay, because we made it a half-hour break. I just wanted to ask if we should give you that time. One more question. Did the people drinking water without treatment boil their water? Was that considered treatment?
I would consider that treatment, and I can't remember exactly if we gave them options or not on that. So that may be an interpretation issue with that. But yeah, I would consider that treated water.
Okay, thank you. And